text for our message this morning comes from the Gospel according to Luke, from the 15th chapter, the 1st through the 3rd, and the 11th through the 32nd verse. Now, beginning with the first verse of the 15th chapter of the Gospel according to Luke, hearken to the reading of the word of the Lord. Then all the tax collectors and sinners drew near to him to hear him. And the Pharisees and scribes complained, saying, "This man receives sinners and eats with them." So he spoke this parable to them, saying, "A certain man had 2 sons, and the younger of them said to his father, 'Father, give me the portion of goods that falls to me.' So he divided them his living. Not many days after, the younger son gathered all together, journeyed to a far country, and there wasted his possessions with riotous living. But when he had spent all, there arose a severe famine in that land, and he began to be in want. Then he went and joined himself to a citizen of that country, and he sent him in the fields to feed swine. And he would gladly have filled his stomach with the pods that the swine ate, and no one gave him anything. But when he came to himself, he said, 'How many of my father's hired servants have bread enough and to spare, and I perish with hunger? I will rise and go to my father. I will say to him, Father, I have sinned against heaven and before you. I am no longer worthy to be called your son. Make me like one of your hired servants.' And he arose and came to his father. But when he was still a great way off, his father saw him and had compassion and ran and fell on his neck and kissed him. And his son said to him, 'Father, I have sinned against heaven and in your sight, and am no longer worthy to be called your son.' But his father said to his servants, 'Bring out the best robe and put it on him, and put a ring on his hand and sandals on his feet. And bring the fatted calf here and kill it, and let us eat and be merry. For my son was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.' And they began to be merry. Now his older son was in the fields, and as he came and drew near to the house, he heard music and dancing. And he called one of the servants and asked, 'What is these things meant?' And he said to him, 'Your brother has come, and because he has received him safe and sound, your father has killed the fatted calf.' But he was angry and would not go in. Therefore his father came out and pleaded with him. So he answered and said to his father, 'Lo, these many years I have been serving you. I have never transgressed your commandments, and at any time, and yet you never gave me a young goat that I might make merry with my friends. And as soon as this son of yours comes, who has devoured his livelihood with harlots, you kill the fatted calf for him.' And the father said to him, 'Son, you are always with me, and all that I have is yours. It is right that we should make merry and be glad. For your brother was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found.'" The word of the Lord for the people of the Lord. May he add blessing and understanding to the reading of his words. This is a pretty familiar story. Prodigal son. There are 2, though, very, very important lessons that we need to hear from this, folks. It's lessons about God's love for us. It is not lessons about a concept that we shall call just absolute forgiveness. Universalism is a concept that would say Christ died and so everyone's forgiven, no matter what they do or when they do it. not what's being taught here, folks. And yes, the son went off and sinned, and he came back, and the Father forgave him. But what we have to hear is what happened and how the son behaved. It speaks to the very basic nature of salvation as offered through Jesus Christ. Here we have a son that he says, and one of the things that struck me first is he doesn't go to his father and ask him. He goes to his father and tells him, give me what's mine. Give me my part of my inheritance. The father obliges. He gives him his part of the inheritance. It says not many days later, he goes off to another country. And he wastes it all. And riotous living. Now, of course, none of us has ever done this. None of us has, when we got away from home at college or after high school, when we moved away, we never went out and just said, to heck with it all, and I'm going to have a good time. If you hadn't, you missed out on something, folks. Two things. A lot of learning and the opportunity to understand this story better. This young man went out, and statistics tells us he behaved just like about 85% of our young people today. He had good upbringing. He got away from home, and he turned his back on everything that he was brought up to understand. But at some point, it says he came to himself. And what he did, folks, is where the really important part of it comes in. Yep, he was hungry. Yes, he was trying to do something to better his state. But the main thing is he recognized what? I have sinned against God and you, Father. He recognized the concept that you have to do what? You have to be contrite. You actually have to feel sorry for what you've done. Now, one of the differences a lot of times that we run into today is there's a world of difference, folks, of being sorry for being caught doing something and actually being sorry for what you've done. Recently, I was listening to the news, and they were talking about sentencing, and the sentence that was handed out to a public official, the prosecutor was just livid because they thought it was far, far too lenient. Because of one thing. He said, this man has never expressed any form of sorrow about what he did. He said it'd be different if he really felt sorry for it. He said the only thing he feels sorry for is he got caught. I don't know about you, but I saw that many times in my kids. They weren't sorry for what they did, really. They were just sorry they got caught doing it. And that's a real easy thing to do, isn't it? But that doesn't work with God, folks. To be sorry that somebody points out your faults is not the answer. The answer is to be sorry and